Welcome to the Rocks and Roots podcast. We are back at you with yet another fabulous episode. Hello, Crank. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, especially because I'm looking forward to the end of the month, finally finishing the Shenandoah.
Woo-hoo!
So we will update you on that. But I am doing especially great this evening because we just had a conversation with Jess Lancaster. And Jess is an accomplished hiker who specializes in Tennessee and the Cumberland Plateau. So this is an area that we have no clue about.
Nothing about.
So it was very, very informative to hear some more detail about the Art Loeb Trail and the Cumberland Plateau and just learn about this, about Tennessee, which we have never hiked in. And I would also like to personally thank Jess for rescheduling many times. And then we also had an issue with time zones. So thank you so much for working with us.
Yes, we truly appreciate it. As East Coasters think we're the center of the universe, and we're not. Surprise, surprise. I will say I apologize in advance if you hear the thunder in the background. There was a nice thunderstorm rolling by here in northern New Jersey. So, sorry.
We are an outdoor podcast, so that just adds atmosphere.
That very, very, very nice, Crank. Agreed. Okay, so I'm not sorry then. Okay, so anywho, when you listen to the podcast at the end, Jess does give her socials, so you'll hear all about that then. But for now, we're on the Instagram, we are on the TikTok, we are on the Patreon, we are on the YouTube. We have tons of shit. Go follow us or something. Plus, we appreciate you very much for listening to our modest podcast. We are gaining followers ever so slowly, so we really appreciate you listening. Cranky just figured out that we can check out who's listening to us state by state. So New England, go you. Utah, there's one Utah person listening. Hello, Utah. Thank you so much for listening. And one from Washington, D.C. So go you.
And hopefully we will break into the South now that we have our first true Southern guest. So we hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will be back at you at some point. Maybe even, it might even be a couple weeks until we finish the Shenandoah, but we're not going anywhere. We will be back eventually.
All right. So without further ado, here is Miss Jess Lancaster. Well, hello, Jess, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast this evening.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to talk about hiking in Tennessee.
Which is a place we really know nothing about, so we are very excited for to hear all the intel.
And we were just looking at our demographics, and most of our listeners come from Jersey and New York, which makes sense, and New England. So we are excited to have someone from the South on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. There's lots of stuff down here. So
lots of stuff that really doesn't get a lot of attention other than the Smoky. So I'm glad we're going to be talking about some different things. And we're going to, Tumbles and I are going to learn a lot from this. But let's start with your background. So, are you from Tennessee? That's obviously where you are now. And then how did you get into hiking and the Cumberland Plateau?
So I'm originally from Northwest Indiana, so right on Lake Michigan, where the Indiana Dunes National Park now used to be National Lakeshore when I was growing up. But now there's a national park in my hometown, which is kind of crazy that I grew up with, that like national park right in my backyard, and of course didn't appreciate it. But so grew up in Indiana, spent summers at summer camps. We kind of lived a little bit out in the country, so we had a little bit of land. Like my dad mowed this path through our property, so I had a trail that I would go hiking on when I was younger, and kind of fell in love with Tennessee. We would visit the Smoky Mountains, of course, a huge vacation destination. started going there when I was a kid, and we just kind of kept going. We loved it. So that's how I kind of fell in love with Tennessee. And then I ended up transferring colleges, and I finished college in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I'm at now, and have been here since 2009. So a lot of my adult life has been in Tennessee, Nashville based, but close enough to all the good stuff in the outdoors.
For sure. Now, Nashville, I know nothing about the geography of Tennessee. Is Nashville east, west, north, south? Where are we talking?
Right in the center. Right, so, you know, Tennessee's like long and thin. Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of like right in the center. So we're about 3.5 to 4 hours from the Smoky Mountains, depending on what part you're going to. And then I can get to a lot of really great hiking in about an hour and a half. Yeah, so that's great. And there's great city parks and things here, you know, local, but a lot of the stuff I like to go and feel like I'm actually in the backcountry. About an hour and a half. Everything from like an hour and a half to like 4 hours away there's lots of stuff.
So do you consider your 4 hours a day trip? Would you go 4 hours out? Because we do.
I usually cap it at like 2.5 hours for a day hike. So I usually wouldn't do like the Smokies as a day hike. I theoretically could, for sure. It's just like there's a lot in between there. And my parents live right outside the Smokies now, so they moved down. They retired down in East Tennessee. So when I do go, I can kind of make it like a quick overnight. It's easy to do that, even if I don't feel like camping or whatever, getting permits and all that. But so I usually don't go to the Smokies for day hikes. Understood. I wish I was a little closer. I'm almost there. It's like so close, but yeah.
So 2 questions to branch off of that. So how many miles are you doing on an overnight within the 24 to 48 hours? And then you mentioned the permit system. How much of a pain in the butt is that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Because we absolutely love the permit system, don't we, Chris?
Yes. It's actually not that bad. I mean, obviously, if you're hiking on the AT, you don't need a permit for most things. But
that's good to know.
Yeah. Like, if you're in Georgia, like the Georgia AT, you just go. Mm-hmm. I usually register with the ATC just so they know I'm out there, and also like track miles, whatever. But like through the Smokies, you do need permits. Even through hikers don't need a permit. Maybe they do. I don't know. But it's not too hard. It's just another step of planning. Most of the rest of the stuff is usually like just through the Tennessee State Park system. So it used to be free, and you just had to like register. Now I think it's like $9 for a backcountry site, which Tennessee State Parks are also free to enter for everybody. So it's a small price to pay to like be able to use these great state parks. So it's not too bad. It's just on the weekends, the popular ones, of course,
fill up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, as far as like mileage, 24 to 48, it just depends what I'm feeling. Like in the summers, I really, really hate summers down here. So like, I'm not doing lots of miles. I'm like maybe 5 to 7 miles each way, and that's fine. I'm like, it just gets too hot, and then I'm usually with my dog, and then she gets warm, and but typical like spring, fall, winter, I'm doing, I don't know. I like to make it worth my time, so like at least 10 miles a day.
Okay.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about average.
Like just depends. Yeah, it just depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes if I'm doing like a defined point-to-point trail, it is what it is. Sometimes if I'm just picking a random loop I'm going to do, I kind of can choose how long. And usually I end up doing more than I plan on because I'm like, I can do it. I can just push myself. It's fine.
Of course.
I want to get the miles down. So.
All right. So primarily from what I gathered from, checking out Instagram, you primarily hike in the Cumberland Plateau. Can you tell us a little bit about that area, like the overall length, maybe some of its history? Because like I said, we are going to learn a lot from you this episode.
Okay, great. So, yeah, the Cumberland Plateau, so like just geographically, Tennessee, like the middle Tennessee, like we're in the Cumberland Valley. So like Cumberland River goes through Nashville. And then as you drive east towards the Smoky Mountains, towards the Appalachian Mountains, you hit the plateau. So as you're driving east, you can see all of a sudden, like you're driving out, like something rises up like out of nothing almost. So that's like the beginning of like kind of the Appalachian Mountains. And so within there, once you get up there, there's a lot of like really cool, it's not really like mountainous yet. It's like you're looking down into a gorge. There's tons of like little, like you can hike on top of the plateau. You can hike down into the gorges. There's tons of waterfalls, like 180 waterfalls or something ridiculous like that in this area. Lots of really great rivers and waterways, like really cool streams and huge rocks, like crazy house-sized boulders, just like tons of stuff. It just doesn't, it definitely feels different than like hiking in the mountains, but you still get those like mountain-like views, but it's a gorge. I don't know. It's crazy.
Now,
it's beautiful.
Does the plateau cover the width of Tennessee?
So it's kind of like the Cumberland Plateau goes from like Georgia all the way up. It kind of follows like the whole Appalachian Mountains up, right. But it like, it's like once the plateau ends, the Appalachian Mountains begin, gotcha. Basically. And then it doesn't start until, a couple, like an hour east of Nashville where you can like see it go. So, But yeah, I mean, it extends up into Kentucky and there's like lots of stuff up there as well. Like the Cumberland Mountains kind of go into Kentucky and there's some beautiful areas up in southeastern Kentucky as well. But yeah.
Wow, very cool. I've never heard of the Cumberland Plateau. Have you, Crank?
No, not until I started poking around once we realized that we were going to talk to Jess.
Yeah.
What are you looking at for like elevation changes in the gorges? Yeah,
it's about not quite 1,000 feet usually to go down into them. It's less than 1,000 feet. I should look at what my last hike was when I went in there, but it's like the opposite of obviously like climbing a mountain because you're like going down into the gorge and you have to climb back out. But there's like a super rocky area too. Like lots of boulder fields and you're walking over rocks a ton. So that makes it like challenging and it makes it feel like you've done more than you actually have a lot of times too. But it's not super crazy elevation changes as in like, you're not gaining like 2,000 feet or losing or gaining 2,000 feet of elevation, right. But it's enough to feel like you're down in the gorge and you're up, like looking at like a rolling hills almost because it looks like, like the gorge is folding over itself and
what they call the foothills before you get to the big mountains.
Yes, kind of. So like, that like once you get off the plateau or once you like keep going east, then it's like, then the true foothills start.
Okay.
And then it's the
mountains.
Yeah.
So what in your hiking of the plateau, what has been your favorite hike?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So there is a trail that they are working on, like a through hiking, a long distance trail called the Cumberland Trail, which starts at like the northeast corner, kind of on the border of Virginia and Tennessee. And it's going to end in Chattanooga. So like right outside the city, kind of. So that's not finished yet. Mm-hmm. There is like, over 200 miles connected, but it's going to be like over 300 miles, I think, when it's all said and done. But it's crazy hard to build a trail in modern times, like just getting all the land pieces sorted out, lots of on private land. It's just a lot slower going. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive when like the larger trails were getting formed, but I mean, every year they change a little bit, you're rerouting around certain things and whatever. Sure. So it will be really cool when it's all completed, but I don't know when it's going to be. Like they say, 2024, 2023, 2025. So who knows when it's going to be done? It takes they're working hard to get the land together and everything like that. All that to say, there will be a very cool trail that you can come down and hike see all of the Cumberland Plateau. So along that trail, there's some really cool day hikes / overnights that I've done. One called Black Mountain, that just pretty classic Cumberland Plateau hike, just lots of rocks, lots of structures, a little bit of water, and then you have like a nice view at the end. And there's another area kind of closer to Chattanooga, a little more, called Laurel Snow. So that has 2 really great waterfalls and has like a really long bridge over this huge gorge. It's really beautiful. Outside of that, the area that I've probably been to the most is called Savage Gulf. So it's part of a state park called South Cumberland State Park, as in South Cumberland Plateau State Park. And it's pieces all, like, it's not all contiguous. There's like different pieces of it all over the southern part of the plateau. And so that includes a lot of like really amazing hiking. Savage Gulf being the main, kind of the biggest main part of it. Just lots of short backpacking loops, longer backpacking loops, super popular day hikes. There's like waterfalls at each of the ends because like the streams that flow dump into the gorge from each of these 3 points. So there's like 3 mouths of this gorge.
I'm looking at the map now of was it Savage Gulf? Savage
Gulf, yeah. So you can kind of see it's like spindly. It has like those 3 forks.
Oh wow. Could make a nice weekend out of that, huh?
Yes, I mean, it would be cool. I've hiked every mile of those trails except for like the very northeasternmost like loop up there.
Okay.
It's great. It's usually, once you get out of the popular place, it's pretty quiet and secluded. Mm-hmm. Really feels like you're in the wilderness much more than a lot of longer hikes that I've done or like longer trails that I've done. You really feel like you're kind of getting out there. So, and another really popular one is Fiery Gizzard, which has been named by Backpacker Magazine like one of the top 25 hikes in the country multiple times. So it's like a 13-mile point-to-point through hike. Not really, but kind of. It's definitely doable in a day. But that has everything. That has a little bit of everything, I have to say. You have your waterfalls, you have your like gorge walking, plateau walking.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm seeing this, and it ends at Foster Falls.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a really great swimming, like in Foster Falls as well.
Nice.
We always support a trail that ends with a water hole.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
So I'm looking at pictures of both Fiery Gizzard and of Black Mountain Trail. And at least what people have put on all trails are absolutely gorgeous.
And that's just all trails too. I mean, there's great photographers on all trails, but yeah, it's just a little bits of things. Yeah.
But there's spots where you're hiking between almost canyon walls. There's this is really, really cool shit.
It's crazy. Like, I feel like people, it's funny because I think, oh yeah, of course, everyone knows about this because it's something that I've been familiar with for, a decade or so. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh yeah, no, this is really a cool place that I get to like hike in. Like I often like not that I take it for granted because I always think it's really beautiful, but like all these, Colorado, California, I don't know, Maine, all these places, like, oh, it's these really cool outdoor places and they have outdoor, like such great outdoor culture. But Tennessee does too. Not to say that those don't.
Oh, of course.
They do. Like, it's great.
I mean, you have like Klingman's Dome in Tennessee.
Right. Or they just think it's the Smokies and it's Gatlinburg and it's touristy.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of places in the Smokies that are you can still find seclusion. You just can't hike the popular trails.
Of course.
But, it's a special place for sure. And I think you could make it worth your while to come down for like a week. There's so much, I feel like everything's relatively close in that area. You could see a lot for sure.
That's great.
So tumbles,
Yes.
I'm looking,
Yes.
and if we wanted to twist Mrs. Cranky's arm into slack packing us, there's
Can she hear you?
Chattanooga and Chattanooga National Military Park for history buffs. So I'm already conniving in my head how we can get my lovely wife to slack pack us in those areas. So yeah, there's also a lot of history there, which is really cool as well. So you have those state parks, recognizing Civil War history, the Siege of Chattanooga. So yeah, if anyone is interested in that, that's another reason to head down there.
There you go.
Yeah, lots of Civil War. I mean, not necessarily in Savage Gulf, Cumberland Plateau area, but there's tons of Civil War. This Tennessee was like the battleground of the Civil War. So lots of national military parks, national battlefields in the area as well, which, yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That happened.
That happened here.
Yes.
Let's go.
So
we'll leave tomorrow.
Let's go. So you've also done the Art Loeb Trail. Can you describe that? Well, first describe the trail.
Yeah, where is it?
And then where is it? What is it? And then what was your hike like a little bit?
Yeah, so Art Loeb Trail is in North Carolina, not too far from Asheville, North Carolina, which is western part of North Carolina, still in the mountains, still, you're very much in the Appalachians. So it's in a national forest. It's in Pisgah National Forest. So the nice thing about national forest is you don't have to worry about permits. Mm-hmm. So super easy to hike, to just kind of go for it. Like when I did it, I have a friend who, she works at Mountain Crossings in Neal Gap.
Yes, we are familiar
with
it.
She hiked the AT Sobo last year.
Nice.
So I finished with her from Neal Gap to all the way to Amicaloba Falls. Anyway, all that to say, she and I just randomly one week, she's like, I have 3 days off. Do you want to hike? And I was like, yeah, duh, of course. And so I've been wanting to do the Art Loeb Trail for a while, but it's like 4.5 to 5 hours. So just like, even for, an overnight or a weekend, it takes a little bit more planning. Just like I do have to ask off work. I have to do this and that. Anyway, got it all sorted out. And I don't recommend this. We did not really plan so much. We didn't really know what was like, yeah, water can be kind of scarce. So I don't know. It was just a funny, we kind of just went and we're like, we can figure this out. And we did, and it was fun and it was beautiful. But I wish I would have prepared just a little bit more. But you can say that about anything. But yeah, this area is beautiful. Just the other side of the Smokies, or other side of the Appalachian Mountains from the Smokies, just beautiful, beautiful rolling hills, beautiful views, lots of balds where you can see super far. There's a lot of, part of the Pisgah National Forest is the Shining Rock Wilderness, and they call it Shining Rock Wilderness because the rocks are literally quartz and shiny, white, so it almost looks like snow. So there's just huge, in a certain part of the trail, there's just these huge white glittering boulders that are just so beautiful. And you're like, is that snow on the ground? You're like, no, that's a rock. Okay, wait, what's going on? And then just just really unique.
Well, Pisgah National Forest is fabulous as well because it has the sliding rocks that you can literally go into a pool of water.
Yes, right. right. Yeah.
Yeah. How old was I? I must have been, 11 years old. And I still remember that very fondly. Yeah. The water was freezing, but I had a good time.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful area. There's so much within it. Little day hikes, there's when you're driving through national forest too, there's always those pull-offs, those random things that are just beautiful, and just tends to be a little less crowded than national parks, obviously. Even state parks, that kind of thing. It's just a little bit more wild and just very beautiful. I would do it again. It was hard. It was very hard. We did it. Originally, we're going to do it 3 days, 2 nights, just to kind of take our time a little bit. But it was we didn't know about weather. The weather was kind of getting bad. Looked like it could get bad. And so we just let's just do it in 2 days. So we did 17 miles a day And it's just constantly, you're just like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So
that's interesting because I've heard of the Art Loeb Trail. I mean, a lot of people have heard about it, and it's less than 40 miles.
It's 30.1 miles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, for such a short trail, it's rather popular.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, obviously, like a lot of trail runners, it's like a really good training because it's 30 miles. You know, if you're doing an ultra and you're getting so much elevation. Up and down, so a lot of trail runners do that in a day. But it's definitely doable. In an overnight, it was just. I mean, you're just hiking all day, which is fine because that's what you're out there to do. So what else are you going to do? So that's where I'm like, all these people at their campsites, it's like 2:00 and they just stop. I'm like, what are you going to do? Just sit there all day? Just keep hiking. But
so I'm looking at pictures, and it actually, first of all, this website where you can find information about the trail, Hike WNC. It looks like it's a really great website.
Oh, yeah.
The pictures on here are awesome. This kind of
Tennant Mountain looks amazing.
Yes.
Yes.
What one?
Tennant Mountain.
Tennant Mountain. Yeah, that's one of the mountains on on the Art Loeb Trail. Yeah, there's you summit lots of like little.
It's beautiful.
I mean, not little, but like lots of mountains. Yeah.
I'm looking at what you were describing, Jess. Shining rock with the quartz, and it looks like there's snow all over the rocks, but it's not.
It is not. Yeah. Black Balsam Knob is like a really popular like day hike. You can like hike in from it, but I mean it is very beautiful. It's one of those things I'm like, okay, it's so popular, and I kind of hate saying like you should see this, but it's very, very beautiful. So
no, we take recommendations seriously here on the podcast.
Yes.
So yes, recommend away.
Yeah. One of my friend who I was hiking with, she had done Black Balsam Knob as a day hike a few times, but she's like, just hits different when you're through hiking. Like, I mean, it just, you hike, 15, 16 miles to get there. So it was just like, and it was a beautiful day. It was like in the evening. And so it was a magical time.
And looking at some of the pictures again, also parts of it look like southern Pennsylvania. It looks like you get tons of variety on this trail.
Yes.
Very cool. All right, so let's move on to your waterfalls. You mentioned waterfalls many times already in our conversation. Your Instagram is filled with just amazing pictures of waterfalls, but I was noticing your photos are absolutely gorgeous. Can you talk a little bit about photography and what effects are you using on those waterfall pictures?
Yeah, so first off, I'm not like, I don't classify myself as a photographer. I'm not out there with my like fancy, I take everything with my iPhone camera. I'm not like out there trying to like get this perfect shot with my camera. So all the photographers out there, I'm not trying to steal your thunder here. I did take photography classes like in high school. Like I know how to work a camera. I do have like, I learned the basics of like different photography composition things or whatever. But I used to be super into film photography and all that kind of thing. But I wasn't enjoying the moment. I was like taking too many photos with like my 5 different cameras trying to get all these things. Then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take photos with my iPhone and it's going to be great. So, I'm just using Lightroom, the free version of Lightroom to edit photos sometimes.
Lightroom is great.
I feel like it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just do it on my, use what's on the phone. But I mean, and to get those long exposure shots, anyone can do that with an iPhone. You just have to take a live photo and change the settings on it to make it a long exposure. So anyone with an iPhone, and maybe even a Samsung, I don't know what the settings are those, but you don't need a fancy camera to make long exposure photos so the water looks like soft. You can do it on your phone. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So
thank you.
All right. So this is what I have wanted to talk about. And thank you again for our listeners. This has been like the third or fourth time we've rescheduled this with Jess, so it is greatly appreciated. So I've been waiting to talk about this for a couple of weeks. So you did Springer to Blood Mountain, which was one of our favorite AT sections. Can you talk about that experience and your thoughts on that section of the AT?
Yeah, definitely. So it was my first time like doing like longer than just like an overnight on the AT specifically. So I was excited to like really feel like, oh, I'm actually like going to be out on the trail, going to be, I don't know, feeling more like a thru hiker. I don't know. But it was super cool also, like just to be able to like finish the AT with my friend. So it was like she was at the end of her journey, and yeah, it was beautiful. And I'd been to Blood Mountain before, like just on a day hike, but like again, like hiking up from Neil Gap into Blood Mountain is just like, it was obviously right away, just like
straight up
hill.
Yes.
So
that was a difficult day for us.
I also, well, it's funny because I was also like, oh, I'm gonna bring so much trail magic for her, and so I had like a 6-pack of beer, like so much food and candy, so my pack was like so heavy. It was ridiculous. So I'm like, why did I do this? But then it was worth it because then we got to have like fun snacks when we were, at camp. But it was pretty challenging also. I mean, that whole section, I feel like kind of similar to Art Loeb. It's just, you go up just to come back down again.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, oh, we're doing this. We're going for it. But like, obviously it was so beautiful. And we hiked it was December, middle of December. And so it was really gloomy and foggy. So like we didn't get to see some of the views, which was kind of a bummer, but also it just felt like we were hiking in like magic the whole time because it was like that like fog and that mist. It was also the only time it rained because she was hiking through the fall.
I feel like no matter when you go.
So she was like, I feel like I didn't get the classic AT experience because I didn't. She like carried rain pants the whole way and only wore them the last like 3 days of the trail.
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, all that to say, it was I feel like I got a classic weather experience. It poured on our longest day, the whole day. And I thought,
this sounds so familiar.
Yeah, well, and
like you could be describing our Georgia experience
in June.
But like also, at least it was like not hot. Right. But I was still hiking in shorts and a t-shirt, because Tennessee in the South still, once you get going, especially, it's like, for some of the hike, I was hiking shorts and t-shirt. But it was like pouring, and I thought I wore like waterproof shoes just for like a little bit of warmth because I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, whatever. I didn't even really think anything of it, just to make my feet a little bit warmer. And then it poured all day, and so basically, I just was walking in swamp shoes the whole time.
Yes, you were.
You know what I mean? It's just like I could keep emptying them out, but they were going to keep getting filled up, and because they're waterproof Gore-Tex shoes, they're not going to dry out. It was just like, are you kidding me? But it's fine. You just get used to it. And you just keep hiking, and then like
you only
the
have 3 days.
Yeah, and then
it sounds miserable and amazing all at once.
Oh yeah, that's hiking. I was just thinking earlier today. I was like, I can't really explain why I love hiking so much, and I think that's why I like it so much. Like, I can't explain why it is the best thing ever, but it just is. But it's like the worst, but it's the best. Anyway, I was just thinking about that earlier today. I was like, how would I explain how much I like hiking to somebody who didn't understand hiking?
Right.
And I don't know. But anyway, all that to say, it was super warm and humid and rainy that day. We stayed at the Springer Mountain Shelter, and then because we wanted to wake up, she didn't want to finish in the rain, and we wanted to wake up and go to Springer in the morning, and it was going to be beautiful. Well, overnight, it got very cold. It froze overnight, like everything froze. And so like we were in, it was also the day a bunch of tornadoes went through southern Tennessee, southeast Tennessee. There was a tornado like in my neighborhood that weekend. Like there was a ton of really bad weather. Thankfully we had missed it. It was a little bit more north of us. But it like brought through this like freezing. We had like the tent, both of our tents hung up to like block the shelter doors or block the shelter opening to like block out some wind. And then like all of our clothes that we had on froze completely. It's just like solid, you know, frozen solid, you know, frozen socks, frozen shoes. Yep. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, well, I mean, thankfully didn't have to put on like a freezing t-shirt or anything. You know, obviously I had my backup clothes, but putting your feet into freezing shoes is not
fun, isn't it?
And then your feet don't really, it was still cold that morning. And so our feet didn't really thaw out. And I felt so bad for Bethany because she like was finishing her through hike, like summiting Springer. And like, we're just like screaming and yelling because we were so cold. And like the photos are all, she's just like so cold and like our faces are so red. We're so bundled up. And I was like, I'm so sorry that this is the end, but also it's kind of classic that we're finishing in this freezing.
Yes.
I don't know. So it was an experience for sure.
Now, did you guys go down to Amicalola? Did you continue to hike down?
So that's where I parked my car, and I have family friends that live in the area, and so they shuttled me up to Neal Gap, and so
nice.
We did the AT approach trail in reverse.
So I was going to say, like, once you get to Springer, you're done, but then you're really not done. You still have miles to go.
7 miles to go.
I could have parked at, there's like a parking lot not too far from Springer, but
it's about a mile and
Yeah. But I was like, I kind of want to like do the whole thing. And then also for her to like be able to sign the SOBO register and like go, you know, go through the stone arch and all that stuff. So like she also wanted to do that. So it was nice to be able to do like the full thing. And it was nice that we got to go down all those steps at Amicalola Falls and not up the stairs. We're like,
the falls must have been gorgeous in the winter. And also I was going to say Blood Mountain and Blood Mountain Shelter in the fog and the rain, it sounds miserable, but we did it in those conditions, and it just adds actually a really nice atmosphere to that section. Because that section is kind of creepy. Anyway, it's named freaking Blood Mountain.
Right. And there's a horrible movie if you've not seen it. I would highly recommend the horrible movie.
Yeah.
And so, you know, doing it in the fog and the rain, it just adds this really nice, creepy atmosphere that it sounds horrible, but it's not. It's really cool doing it in those conditions.
Yeah. No, it was. And it was like, the only thing that was like annoying was just like my own fault, like having like shoes full of water that wouldn't drain out.
Yes.
that was stupid. Well, so never again. Never again. Now, it rains too much in the south.
What are we rocking now?
So I have like one of every shoe because I used to work at REI, and so you just get everything. So usually I'm wearing Lone Peaks now.
Okay.
Ultra Lone Peaks.
Yep.
I also have some Hoka, some Speed Goats.
Cool.
I also like XA Pros, Solomon XA Pros. They're much more sturdy, but it's great for like super rocky things.
I guess you also have a narrow foot.
I do.
Yeah, Solomons are good for more narrow.
Which is funny because the XA Pros are the least narrow of them all. Like they are like actually like a normal width of a foot.
Okay.
Like it's not like it's funny because it is still like I'm having to like tighten them down kind of a lot.
Well,
but
that's good to know.
Yeah, we are doing Half Dome this summer, so something with grip. Is gonna be, so we should maybe check those out. Tumbles.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, no, I really do, and I do feel like those have such a good sole, like such a good grippy sole on them, the XA Pros. I really do love them. I do, and the Lone Peaks, I feel like the soles are pretty good as well. Like
you gotta get them new though.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
After a couple 100 miles, they get soft spots on the soles, and you start to slip, and they self-destruct.
Yes. Well, that's other nice thing about Solons are they do last many, many more miles than Lone Peaks. They're just much more
sturdy.
Yeah. Like they're going to last you a longer time. So I do love those.
So since we are on the topic of gear, it looks like from your Instagram you talk about your Six Moons design pack. Can you go into that in some more detail?
We have heard of Six Moons designs. It is getting a little bit more popular as the years go on. Yeah,
so I was hiking with a very heavy pack compared to what my gear was. When I first started backpacking, I got what I could afford. I was like young, early 20s, just like, okay, I'm going to get everything as cheap as I can. And I was, I had like a 6-pound tent and a 4-pound sleeping bag. You know what I mean? I made it work and it was great. And I fell in love with it. And, you don't have to have fancy gear to go hiking at all.
Correct.
Or backpacking. But I kind of still had I'd since upgraded. I shouldn't say upgraded. I just got different gear. Everything was so much lighter, and my pack was like 5 pounds, and my base weight was like 9 or 10 pounds. I'm like, what? Why am I doing this to myself? I don't need to have a pack that weighs more than my tent, sleeping bag, and anyway. So
that's what I do till this day. So
yes, he does.
Which is and it's fine because it's just whatever you like. That's the thing. It's like, I hate when people are like, oh, that's a bad pack or those are bad shoes. It's like, if it works for you, why are you being so weird about it? Mm-hmm. Who cares? Anyway, all that to say, I do love gear though, and I could talk about it all day. So the reason I chose Six Moon Designs, I wasn't ready to quite go completely frameless because I was going from a highly structured pack. I had an Osprey Aura AG, which is the one that has the really nice, it's anti-gravity, so it sits off your back, which I thought I would like, but then it just makes it bounce too much for me. But so I wanted something ultralight that I didn't have to worry about counting grams and ounces, but also had a lot of flexibility with it. And so the great thing about Six Moons is you can get 3 different types of harnesses in 2 different sizes, and different kinds of hip belts in different sizes. So you kind of pick your hip belt size, you pick your vest style and size, and then you can kind of customize it to be what you need. So I had not found that in a lot of other packs where it's or it comes standard with one hip belt and it was you had to buy another hip belt to change it out. And so with this one too, it has you can switch the torso length on it, so it's just one pack, and then you just take off the shoulder harness and adjust it to what feels good for you. Price point was very friendly. It was under $300 for sure. It was $210, $220 or something for
how many liters?
It's 50.
Oh
wow.
40 and 9, 48 to 50. Yeah, and it has side. I know podcasts are not a visual medium, but
that's okay. We're curious.
That's okay. We are on video.
But I figure I need to look at it. Yeah, just it has the side compression strings, a really nice thick
mesh
Velcro,
pocket,
elastic pouch. Super easy to reach and get the water bottles out of the side pouches. Never had a problem with that. Which is super great.
That's enticing.
Yes, no, it really, it has this running vest style harness.
Oh.
So it's like a running vest. There's 3 points.
Yeah, it's like a running vest.
So it comes here and here. And there's 2 chest clips. I'm sure some people hate it because they don't like the running vest, but I found it's super comfortable regardless of your size. People who have larger chests or broader chests or a little bit bigger, really, I've seen people say they still love it. It fits them better than having just this skinny straps.
It's like getting hugged throughout your entire hike.
And I feel like it does distribute the weight much better.
That should be their slogan. It's like a hug.
Like a hug. Yeah, and there's hip belt pockets big enough to fit lots of stuff, so I don't feel like I need to wear like a fanny pack, like snacks, and like these vest straps have so many pockets in them. There's like
oh wow.
It's your water bottle. There's like zippers. There's like there's so many pockets. So I definitely don't feel like I need to have anything.
We are tagging Six Moon Designs in all of our promotion for this episode. Please sponsor us, Six Moon Designs.
I know. I don't need to upgrade. I don't need a new tent. I do love my tent, but they have some pretty cool like shelters as well, like that. When and if my tent decides to not work anymore, or I would love to try out one of theirs as well. So
cool.
Anyway, it was just like, I feel like it was like the perfect all around pack for me, just like being able to customize everything. And it was ultra, like, I don't remember how many ounces it is exactly, but another thing, if you want to go frameless, you can take the frame out. It's just like a hoop stay basically. And so you can take the stay, you can take that out if you want to and make it a frameless pack, which is super great if you want to try that, if that's your jam.
I was gonna say, for what you do, you seem to be very versatile. You do a lot of day stuff. Sometimes you're out there for weekends. It seems like that is a pack that you can customize for whatever you're doing, whether you're doing a day or whether you're doing a couple of days. And then the fact that you could take the frame out just proves that point even more.
And it has like the top Y strap, so it's like you can fold it down. And so even like I just went on a really quick overnight a couple weekends ago, and my pack was, I barely brought anything because it was just a quick trip, and it packed down super nice. Like it didn't look too like it was too flimsy or anything. Like It just all
reminds me of Gossamer Gear's pack. That's the one I have. It reminds me of the same thing minus that hug. So it's the version I have is the Swift V. Okay. So that's like the budget friendly version. It's made with Robic nylon, so it's not as like durable as like X-Pack or I forgot what other they use. But there is, so like if I was truly through hiking an entire like long hike, I probably would have upgraded and got something a little more durable, but I'm not going to be out for 6 months at a time. Right.
This one worked so great for me. Has worked so great for me.
The Swift V, you said, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, and the Swift X is the exact same pack. It just isn't like you can just choose your material. So right now it looks like they're sold out of a lot of them. But
I was just looking.
We are making, that's unfortunate to hear, but we are making notes because, like I said, we are doing Half Dome. We're going to be dipping into the Grand Canyon, and we're thinking about upgrading our day packs. So,
yeah, they do have, like, they have a couple, like, actual, like, smaller day packs as well that look.
Yeah. Yes, they do. They have a 30 liter. Cool. They have a couple of 30s. Very cool. And yes, they are reasonable. 150, 200.
Right. That's another, like, not that, like, I mean, I don't think most of these, like, UL pack makers are small and, they're just trying to get, charge what they need to charge for their products. And also everything has gone up in price. So
yes, it has.
It's just nice to find something where I'm like, I spent, and they have like a discount code for the first time too. So like I spent like $200, less than $200 on this really great pack. So
very cool.
Great.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Yes. Love talking gear. So to close out every episode, believe it or not, it's been almost an hour. We always ask our guests to end with some sort of interesting trail tale. It could be something funny. It could be something more serious. Like we've had everything from a guy telling us about helping a compound fracture and helicopters coming in to rescue people to like silly stories. So do you have a trail tale to share with us? Well,
I feel like I already shared my most recent trail tale about hiking with frozen shoes and screaming at the top of Springer Mountain alone. Yeah, I mean, I feel like nothing super crazy has ever happened to me, thankfully. I'm a very anxious person, which hiking both helps and like hurts that, you know?
Yes.
Like, so I feel like I'm very like risk averse, but also I make myself do stuff. So like
hiking is absolutely perfect for that.
Yes,
so
yes.
actually that is, that's kind of where we'll take this then. So what about it makes you anxious? Because Tumbles gets really nervous if we have to do a night hike.
Yes.
I freak myself out with planning and gear. I will pack and repack my shit 40 times. But the second we hit the car, I am great. So like, what about it triggers the anxiety?
I think a lot of it stemmed from me. So like when I first started hiking, I was always doing it alone because nobody wanted to go with me. Mm-hmm. So I was always having like, just like I associate hiking with being alone which can be great, but also
that can
like
be good or bad.
I'm like, yeah. And so it's like, if I don't have cell phone service, how do I, cause you know, I don't carry a Garmin or anything, because keeping those up to date or like paying for the, you know, unless you're doing a through hike, you know, paying for the data and all that stuff is like whatever. So I think knowing that like I could be out somewhere and somebody always knows where I'm at, because I always tell some, I don't know, there's just something about like you're pushing yourself to that edge where like I'm doing something kind of dangerous, but like it's okay because I'm planning about, I don't know, like it's
the fact of being alone without any communication versus if you see somebody on the trail or an animal. Are you less worried about that and more about just the isolation?
I think just like everything. Okay. I think about everything. I'm like, oh, what if a bear comes, or what if a mountain lion? But mountain lions especially, like you don't, like we have some, or bobcats, like we have some like crazy cats in Tennessee that nobody talks about, and it's spooky.
Have you seen any?
No, I haven't. I've seen like tracks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, like I think it's just like a little bit of everything. Just knowing how many things I like catastrophize things. Just knowing how many things could go wrong.
Absolutely.
I'm like clumsy. I'm like always rolling my ankles. Like when I was out with my dog
You are talking to someone named Tumbles, so
yeah. When I was hiking with my dog last weekend, like I always hike with poles for stability and also just for my knees. But like she just like pulled me over some slippery rocks, and I like fell pretty hard. And like if I didn't have my pack on, I would have like hit my head really hard on a rock. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of, you know, I could have gotten knocked out and blah, blah, blah. Like just all those things. Like I feel like when I start thinking about everything that could go wrong, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like out here by myself. If I'm with somebody else, it's much better. Mm-hmm. Like I don't get as anxious because there's somebody else there. Of course. I always think I'm going to run out of water and then I'm going to like die of thirst. So like I'm finally better about not carrying like the most water in the world all the time.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't help your back.
No, it's not. And it's like, I typically do so much research before I go because I am so used to being out there alone and having to, like, I have to know where I'm at. You know, I have to know where the simple wayfinding things of like, okay, where's the sun at? If I'll follow a water source, you know, where am I going to get, like, you know, and I've gotten off trail before and I've gotten like, not lost, but it's like that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm not on the trail. Where am I? Like, how do I get back? So I'm always tracking something like either on my phone or my watch or, you know, just so I can see where the path that I've been to.
Yep.
I do so many things and I still but the more you do it, the more confident you become, obviously.
Sure. I was gonna ask, does the anxiety ever go away when you're on trail at all? Like if you're in your last couple of miles?
Yeah, thank you, Tumbles. That was going to be my exact question. On the flip side, when you're out there, is it like therapy?
Yes. Yes and no. Like it depends. If I like if I hear something or see something, or like, I don't know, something like, or even if like passing somebody on the trail that feels a little bit like off, or like seeing like baby, like I saw like a baby doll, like in, like way out when I was hiking. Creepy. And like that kind of freaks me out. Like just like I think about everything, like,
well, when Crank and I did Connecticut, and we started late and we marched into the evening, and it was, I don't know, January, and it was the last mile and a half of the hike out of maybe, I think it was a 13, 14 mile hike. And all of a sudden we see a bicycle on trail. And I was like,
it's like
we're by the shelter. It's dark. It's kind of creepy that there's a bike on the trail. So of course, like, Cranky's fine. I'm like, what's it? And I keep looking around. What is it? It's dark. I can't see shit. It's icy. So yes, I understand.
Yeah. I don't know. It is funny. Like I've also gone through phases of like not hiking just because of being super busy. Like I went to grad school and I had 2 part-time jobs and grad school and like so many things going on. So like I didn't hike for basically 2 years, and so starting back again was like so hard for me, like to just get out, because I was so not confident in my abilities. Like I hadn't done it in so long. Like you
lose your trail legs.
Yeah. And so it's just like, it was really rough, but the first hike's the hardest, and then you just you do one more. It's also nice to hike with a dog. I do feel most of the time safer, except when she makes me fall much more because she's attached to my waist.
Okay.
Like with a waist leash. And so she's always pulling me over, unfortunately. But just like having like somebody, just having a dog there just for other humans, I know she'll like, I don't know.
She has a good sense of who's good, who's bad.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for, leashing your dog. I do not like dogs on trail. I do not like unleashed dogs on trail. And we have had 1 or 2 experiences where I was in flight or fight mode and I was leaning towards fight because of stupid dogs. So thank you very much.
It literally makes me so angry when I see, because whatever, I could go out for, like, it's just,
it's bad for the dog. It's bad for other hikers.
Leash your dogs in public places. You don't know if someone's super scared of dogs, has a bad experience with dogs. You also, yes, you're like, my dog's friendly, but also a dog is still an animal. And like, you don't know how it's going to react to somebody. Like it could have never bit anybody before, but like if that person does something that threatens the dog, it's going to react just like how we react when we're threatened, feel threatened. So, but it is like, she does love hiking, my dog, so much. And so it is nice to share. I can tell she's happy out there. So it is nice to like share that with somebody if I, don't have somebody with me. So, but I have much more friends who I can hike with, just like from working at an outdoor store, just knowing people that are hikers. Also, just like weirdly, Instagram community. It's like I hate Instagram for a lot of reasons, but also like I have found a lot of friends in the area that I can hike with. So it's, it is nice to hike with people. And I like, it helped me build my confidence up again. And like so when I do go out by myself, like the last trip I went out by myself, I was like almost no anxiety.
Good
so it was because a familiar place, I was like, I knew. So it's really nice to feel like, okay, yes, you can do this. But it's also, that's why I love hiking, because it does push me to step out of my comfort zone. It's so easy, especially as an adult. Like no one really makes you do anything. You know what I mean? Like when you're a kid, your parents are like, you have to do this, you have to do that, or like you don't have control over your life as much. But it's so easy to get complacent when you're an adult, because no one's usually forcing, even to go to work. I mean, no one's forcing you to do anything most of the time. And it's really easy to slip into complacency and just never challenge yourself and never feel you've accomplished something. And when I know that I'm feeling anxious or a little scared, I know that's like means that I'm growing and changing, and becoming hopefully a stronger, more confident person. So
that
I try to remind myself when I'm feeling extra anxious.
Right there, that is the perfect spot to end. Like, because that is
well done.
Great. Drop the mic, Jess. That is a great closer.
Yeah, it's okay. And it's like I'm sure most people listening know the magic of hiking, but yeah, you can hike and not enjoy every hike. Like, think it's the best thing ever. You know what I mean? It's just because you're doing it, you're helping yourself
Absolutely
grow. Yeah,
totally
100%. Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Jess. We are going to close out the episode, but hang out for just another second or two. Oh, your plugs. Do you have...
Thank you. I was going to say, Jess, give us your plugs.
Oh my gosh, I have so many plugs.
Oh, do it, girl. Instagram is She Hikes TN, like She Hikes Tennessee. I do have a website that I don't update as much as I would like to, where I have like hikes. And so a lot of these hikes that I mentioned will probably be on there, but they might be outdated. So maybe like check with me to make sure it's, but it's shehikestn.com. Okay. I try to make it like a good blend of like simple things, or simple overviews with like the information you need. So, but having a blog is hard and it's a lot of work. And so I just don't do it as much as I'd like, but it's there. It's there.
Especially to be a starting point. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
very cool.
Thank you, Jess. It was so informative, and I've learned a bit about Tennessee now, and it makes me want to
go
head down and take Crank and Mrs. Crank for the history. Y'all go follow Jess on the gram. If you have any Tennessee hiking questions, you know who to go to. Yeah. And you know who to
and let me know if you're ever in the area. Like, seriously, love to hike with friends, love to hike with people. Yeah, as long as you're like cool. No, I'm just kidding.
We're not cool. We're actually we're super not cool.
No, that's the thing. I'm definitely not cool. So actually,
all right, you got to be cool to hike with Jess. So make sure you're chill. Yeah. And with that, Jess, thank you so much once again for coming on. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And y'all, go follow her. This has been the Crank, the Tumbles, and the Jess. Ciao.